seen more snaps and seen more things and may understand different intricacies of blocking schemes as opposed to a kid that maybe goes to a big school that all they do is zone block everything.
What about a guy like E.Z. Smith, the fourth from Concord, my man, Reg, your former teammate? He was a guy who played 5 years, got some looks. But, I mean, are you talking about a guy like that who maybe had multiple years in a program and worked different types of offensive schemes from run, pass protection,
yes,
things of that nature?
Yeah, it helps because what we're seeing a lot of, especially in college football right now, is a lot of spread systems where they zone block, and the blocking schemes are very standard every time. And they're getting the ball out in 2 seconds because they're just throwing bubble screens, those types of things. These guys, and NFL coaches will tell you this, they're seeing offensive linemen that just don't know how to sustain a block for more than 2 seconds. Well, that is an issue. Well, so when you find a kid that maybe went to, and I'm throwing out different schools here, some smaller, a kid that maybe went to a North Dakota State and played left tackle alongside a guy like Carson Wentz for 4 years and redshirted 5 years, and they're playing a more pro-style system. This kid has seen more diversity in scheme. He's seen more, different things in terms of, your cowboy blocks, your combo blocks, your all of these different things, G schemes. He's seen all of these things and understands what they all mean, as opposed to maybe a kid from a Texas Tech that all he did was stand there in a 2-point stance and pop up for 2 seconds, wait for him to throw a bubble screen to the right when he's the left tackle, and then he stops blocking.
Well, Reggie and JT and Will, who's the GM? Who's making these calls? Last I heard, Marty Herney's the interim GM, meaning he's not the full-time job. And
you got to do it like you're the guy.
And the other and the team's for sale, so a new owner may want his own GM to kind of run the ship. I mean, who's making these calls here, JT?
I would definitely think that to be Marty Herney, just like they said. Act like that you are, like the man in terms of like making these decisions.
You are the man.
Yeah,
you and Will.
I'm the man sitting next to the man. Both of these guys. But you know what? Though I will say this though, guys. And I know we're going to talk about the ownership part, but people aren't really talking about this. But whoever the owner is going to be, I'm going to bet you money, and I don't have a lot, that they are going to want a new stadium. And here's the thing. Listen.
Let's talk about this because I said it from the beginning.
I think the stadium is dope. But
Felix
you guys probably
so.
think it looks nice too. But here's the thing.
I'm bored with it.
Since 1996, it's 20 years old. Whoever comes in, I would think that they are going to want a new stadium. What do you all think?
Listen.
Can't get a Super Bowl unless you got a dome.
Go ahead, Will, because I'm about to spit ether over here.
Well, the thing is, the Panthers and the stadium are two different entities.
Yes.
The stadium is owned by a different group. The Panthers are owned by 48% Jerry Richardson, 52% I think Jerry Richardson, and 48% all these other people.
He's the majority owner.
But the Panther Stadium is owned by like Panther Stadium Group LLC or something like this. So that's a whole different sale altogether anyway.
And the land is owned by the city,
so that's
leased to the team
for
$1 a year.
Yeah,
right. Deal.
So that's three different things you got to put together.
Yeah, but don't you still think that they would want that? Whoever is the owner.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen.
Type of influence.
I said this from day one, and it's getting traction now throughout the city. But I said from day one, I don't care what the situation. I don't care who buys that football team. They're going to want a new stadium, and it's for two reasons. Two reasons. A, anytime you buy a franchise, you got to put up a whole lot of cash. How do you get that cash back? PSLs and parking. So a new stadium gives you PSLs, and what they're saying now is they want a location that has roughly space for 20,000 parking spots. You do the math, 20,000 parking spots at, let's be cheap about it and say $20 a piece times 8 games a season. That's a whole lot of money. So the reality is, anytime you get a new ownership group, they're going to want everything new because they want to get some of their capital back. That's number one. Number two, it's an arms race everywhere. The Panthers don't have an indoor practice bubble either. If you don't think that they feel like those tools and those toys will not help them attract high-priced players, good players, keep players here, you're crazy. And a new stadium with new amenities, oh, by the way, another way to create revenue is new club boxes and suites. That's what they're focused on. They're not worried about of the 68,000 or whatever it is, they're not worried about the 50,000 people sitting in regular seats. That money is not that much of a concern. They want their PSL money, and they want those suites, and they want that parking.
All right, now, Will, your friend Felix Sabatis, an article came out yesterday. He and his group, which I heard today, may include the Bruton Smith and Marcus Smith, which would be a good idea. the Miller farm property down on the North and South Carolina border. I know someone in his family, of the Miller family. That's about 220 acres, which would include 20,000 parking spots, as the number Reggie pointed out, which is the number I read. That makes a lot of sense. Now that's a lot of money. That could get you a lot of suits at William Wilson Clothing. Not to mention a dome stadium, which I think another way to get some of the revenue back, maybe get some of the offsets from the state governments, is maybe get a Super Bowl, which a lot of the NFL has shown. You want a Super Bowl, you got to have either warm weather or a dome, and this is a way that could possibly check all the boxes.
And if you build a new stadium, they'll give you a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but you don't have to have a dome because they just played a Super Bowl in New York with no dome.
Yeah, but I think that's a special example. I think a retractable dome here in the first of all, I can't count on one hand how many times it's rained at a Panther home game. So I'm not saying it's needed, but to get a Super Bowl, you're going to have the dome to tell the NFL, well, it's got to be climate control.
I disagree. I think if you build a new stadium, they're going to give you a Super Bowl regardless. It doesn't matter what you do; they're going to build you one. Now, I think they need one. I don't share the same enthusiasm towards this stadium that JT does. I think it's old, antiquated, and boring as all get out. They get added. They'll do jumbotron and escalators.
It's dope. The outside. You ever notice that?
I live right next door.
Wilson's a sweet man. He ain't
I pass it every day. It looks the same to me now as it did before.
I think it looks good.
I think they need a new stadium, JT.
It doesn't look anything new to me at all.
I think it's going to be a dome,
like it's the
retractable dome.
Stadium that we see over by Kings.
But it is compared to the other NFL stadiums out there. Look at Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
True.
What's that? What's the one in Minnesota? I forgot what it's called.
U.S. Bank.
U.S. Bank Stadium.
All right. Well, you heard Kevin Tolbert telling us to go to break, so that's what we'll do. We're coming back with more Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grille.
Yeah. I think this stadium.
Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grille. We good? All right.
We got food.
Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grille. Kevin Casey along with Mountaineer Mike Freer, World Beat Freer, William Wilson, Reggie Walker, and John Tobias on assignment covering the Wichita State at East Carolina game. That to me is good. I like
the Wheat Shockers.
Yeah, the Shockers. I love Coach Greg Marshall, former Winthrop coach down there, getting it done. And Tom McClellan, the SID at East Carolina, always does a great job. Mike, college football, we got a new national champion in the house, the Alabama Crimson Tide.
UCF.
And Reggie Walker kept telling us all year about this Hawaiian guy. And I got off, I've been texting with Blaine Anderson, who played at Myers Park, DB coach at Myers Park now, played for Alabama, was on last year, won the last national championship they had before this year. He was texting some of his teammates, and they told him, look, man, if Tug, they call him, he gets in the lineup, he's not coming out. And I think that's a lock right now.
He completely changed the momentum of that game with his second half performance. It was really something to see. He looked like a senior the way he played there. How many guys in that situation could be as calm as he looked in that spot, whether he was or not? He certainly played like it. The whole game changed, Reggie and you guys, on third down, the first drive of that second half, 3rd and 7.
That scramble?
He scrambles, keeps that drive alive. If they don't get it, they're punting, and who knows when they score again. But they go right down there, get the first, go and score, and it really changed the whole momentum of that game, I thought.
Well,
he was
if Jalen Hurts wants to play quarterback, I think he's got to look at Arkansas State or Troy State, because it's not going to be at Alabama, Will.
No, I don't think he needs to be at Alabama because, everyone just jumps on everything. It's like we're like goldfish. He's a new shiny object. So everybody's looking at this and looking at this. Hurts is still 25-2. Everybody jumped on that bandwagon so quick they couldn't get enough seats on it quick enough.
26-2 as a starter because he started
True,
that
that's true.
game.
He started 26-2.
So that win counts for him.
Right.
That's right.
So Tubb did a great job and everything, and that's fine. But it's easy to do something when you have no pressure. You go in next year with all the fanfare he's going to hear coming over,
I agree.
the legend, all this stuff. Now you're going to see a pressure bust
But
pipes
if you're
tonight.
Jalen
First of
Hurts,
all,
I don't
first of
want
all-
to take that chance.
What are y'all scared of? What? Somebody say his name, man. What y'all running from it for?
I don't remember his name. I
Tua
just don't.
Tonga Vailoa.
He went to Alabama. I went to
Tua
Arkansas. I hate
Tagovailoa. It's not
Alabama,
that
so I
hard.
don't care what his name
Y'all
is.
know how to pronounce it over there?
Freer,
You better learn how to pronounce it at Arkansas.
They're going to know
Freer,
it by
I'm
the
gonna
time
slightly
he gets to New
disagree
York
with
in
you.
a couple of years.
I'm going to slightly disagree with you. I think that game changed, to be honest with you. I believe it was his first snap. When he dropped back and threw that deep ball and barely overthrew Ridley,
Yeah.
I think defensively at that moment, Georgia went, wait, we have to defend the vertical pass. And that changed their philosophy defensively immediately. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just that's something I noticed
absolutely.
from their scheme and what they were doing.
I agree with that. That's a good point. That play on third down to me,
Yeah.
and I was watching it when it
Yeah.
happened. When he got the first,
Yeah.
I was like, that.
After he took the sack right on second down, I think he took a sack.
I think
or maybe
so.
he took
You
the
might
sack
be
on
right.
first
Yeah,
down.
It was 3rd and 7 when he
Yep.
did it. And if he doesn't get it, they're punting, and it's 13-0 at that point.
Yeah.
And who knows what happens to Alabama at that point, because that's just another failed drive for them, which they had in the first half.
Yeah.
All the time.
I thought.
But
Go ahead, Will.
see, I don't think that's I think momentum changer would crush Georgia. One, I think Kirby Smart stopped doing what was working.
Absolutely
which
correct.
just
I was getting to
stupid.
that.
Kirby
He pulled a Lincoln
Smart
Riley
lost
in the
that
second
game.
half.
Alabama didn't beat them. Georgia lost that game. But secondly, that when Georgia timed that block punt.
Yes, sir.
And they
he was
called,
not
they
offside.
called him offsides,
When
and
he
they couldn't
wasn't.
review it. I mean, because now you give Georgia the ball right back with that momentum at what, like the 12-yard line?
Yeah, it would have been pretty good field position.
At a minimum, it's the field goal. Then they could more than likely they would have scored. Now that game is the wrap. That's the play that to me that turned that whole thing around. And then Kirby Smart. No one can stop Michelle except Kirby Smart.
He went Lincoln Riley.
The thing I go back to with that one play is because if they end up punting on that drive, they get a sack. Hurts may be back in the game.
He probably would have been back in the game.
And
I agree with that.
The way they've been going, I don't know if they can.
Look,
Right, but that maybe. But if they wouldn't overturn, they could have found a way to overturn that block punt. Had they not called that block punt, that's a minimum 3 points.
Yeah, and the
it's
other
not
piece,
overtime.
Let me and I want to make a point, and y'all know I'm a defensive back at heart. The last play of the game, that safety, I don't care what you're looking at. Why are you looking at the quarterback's eyes? You have 2 vertical routes in front of you, which means you stay over the top. Don't look at the corner. The corner and the safety blew that play because the corner's got to understand the second receiver, the inside receiver's route was more than 10 yards, which means that should look to you as a vertical route, which means the number 1 receiver who you're in front of, you carry him all the way up the field. Safety, you might start on the hash. You got 2 receivers, one almost at the numbers and the other one outside the numbers. That's a wide split, which means get your behind off the hash, get wider, and be over the top of that route. Georgia complete for Kirby Smart, who's known as a defensive guy, 2 veteran defensive backs on the last play of the game. That is unacceptable. What we saw on the last play of the game, and everybody, Tua did a great job holding him with his eyes, looking to the other side. That's garbage. Tua's a left-handed quarterback. His shoulders were open to throw the football to the left side. There's no way he was going to throw that ball to the right side. He would have had to turn his entire body to make that throw. So as a defensive back, I know it was number 24. I think his last name is Sanders, the safety from Georgia. That's unacceptable. That's bad play. That's on you. You got to be over the top as a safety.
Well, live with that the rest of your life. But
I said it.
I would have to think, Reggie, that Nick Saban said, Kirby Smart did a great job game planning. They scheduled for Jalen Hurts. They game planned for Jalen Hurts. They shut down the run. They didn't think Hurts was going to beat him via the air. So Nick Saban said, what do we got to lose? We're getting beat. Let's bring in the Hawaiian punch, the throwing Samoan or whatever. Let's bring him in because we got a better chance of throwing the ball and getting some offense going with this guy.
No. Let's stop making this. The great old sage Nick Saban made a great. No, he had
greatest move of his great career.
He had nothing to lose.
What if it didn't work?
He threw a Hail Mary. He just threw a Hail Mary and threw his kid in.
Exactly. All I'm saying is that's all he had left.
Exactly. So let's stop trying to just glamorize this like he did this amazing. He's such a great coach. He'd have crap else to do, and he just went to the last thing he had. He pulled it out of his butt, and it worked. And it only worked because Kirby Smart. No one was stopping Sonny Michel all night long until Kirby Smart stopped him. Because for some reason he kept trying to go to Chubb, and Chubb was going nowhere fast. Then he started going nowhere slow. Then he just stopped moving altogether. No one was stopping Michel until Kirby Smart stopped him.
And the other issue I had, and if you watch that game back, and I said this before the game, if Alabama has to play with 4 defensive linemen on the field, that's not where they want to be.
Right.
Nope.
Because they can't game as much. And if you look at, especially midway through the first half, Georgia was running the football downhill, not east and west, downhill against 4-man fronts against Alabama. In the second half, all of a sudden you see Alabama playing with 3 down linemen, those outside linebackers. They're playing games. The jack linebackers coming here. They're running twists and stunts with 3 defensive linemen up front. All of a sudden, Georgia falls apart. You got to keep running the football. What's the strength of Georgia's football team? The running backs and the offensive line.
Yep.
Why are you running wide hoping that young receivers are going to make blocks on the edge for you? Run the football downhill, put your fullback in the game, run it downhill behind that big physical offensive line, and let them carry you to a national championship.
Yep. I'm a country boy from Arkansas, but it's one thing I always heard growing up. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Talk to me. Say it one more time.
If it ain't broke, don't fix
Vince Dooley
it.
didn't bench Herschel Walker to bring the other guy in. Is that what you're saying, Will?
Well, Vince Dooley, even if he brought the other guy in, he wasn't going to have the other guy run into the water bucket.
Yeah.
Get downhill.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Saban did the only thing Nick Saban could do because nothing else he was doing
Are you going to give
was
him
working.
credit that he is a decent head coach?
He's a great head coach.
Okay, all right.
You just make it act like he just had this great, metaphysical movement and just thought came in his head like, oh, and the heavens opened
thought you were
up
putting
and this
him down
great
with Brett
inspiring
Bielema
thought
for a
came
minute,
up,
man.
And this thought came out of his head. I know what I'll do. I'll just do this. No, he had no other shot to do.
Okay, as long as you're acknowledging he's a good coach.
How many coaches would have put a freshman in that spot?
Here's what I would say
He
to
had
that,
a sophomore in front of him. It's not like he went from a
But
senior.
you know what? That's my point, though, Freer. Because the reality is this. When it happened, this is exactly what I said. Nick did that. Any other coach, it wouldn't have shocked me. If it was Brian Kelly, Brian Kelly's played 6 quarterbacks in a game. It wouldn't have shocked me with Brian Kelly. It surprised me because it was Nick that did it. I'm not saying it was the greatest decision or the worst decision. I was surprised that Nick, of all people, did that. It was what I would call that is the epitome of a tendency breaker for a guy like Nick Saban. That's what I call it.
Yeah, I think most coaches would have did that.
That Will's putting Nick Saban in with Brett Bielema and Mike puts him in with Dana Holgerson.
No,
or something
you just
like
put
that.
him in with Jesus.
I didn't do that. The guy does have 6 national titles, 5 at Alabama.
Hey, man,
they are going to name it Bryant Denny Saban Stadium at some point.
I just said, what other coach would put in a true freshman in the second half?
All of them.
Not all of them.
See, I think
I think a lot would because it's one game and what you got ain't working. You don't have next week.
Mike Gundy would.
When I see somebody else pull,
He's a man.
I will.
He's got a good mullet.
There's a lot of
Brian Kelly would do that.
There's a lot of coaches been playing a lot of quarterbacks lately.
Brian Kelly?
All right, here you go. Let's debate on this one off the air. But we got the Hornets, ACC basketball, and the UFC is coming to Charlotte. That and much, much more on Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grille. Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grille. Kevin Casey along with Mountaineer Mike Freer, World B. Freer, William Wilson, Reggie Walker. Charlotte Hornets, I watched them last night, guys, and they continued a trend. They're consistently inconsistent, and they looked pretty bad last night. No answers for some guy named Yogi Ferrell. Not Yogi Bear, but Yogi Ferrell.
Terrible loss for them.
But JT says they have to get bad before they get good. They're getting half that done right now.
I'm of the belief that they still can make the playoffs and they still have a shot. Now, the performance last night, there's no way they're going to be anywhere but searching for the lottery. But you're playing 4 days off or 3 days off a really good road trip.
Maybe they were too tired from resting.
They're playing a bad team, on the second night of a back-to-back on the road, and you lose to that team. You give up 39 points in the second quarter. It's unacceptable. It's a terrible loss for
William Wilson, at some point, Michael Jordan is he going to keep hiring guys that agree with him, like Rich Joe, and keep the status quo, or is he going to bring in a legitimate guy who wants to tear up the operation and make basketball decisions for the basketball team?
I think he's going to pull. He's going to remain the Black Jerry Jones. He's going to keep bringing people in that does what he wants them to do. That's what I think he's going to do.
Here's a question. I'll tell you what. Here's a question.
I'm trying to get over that last statement. That's a very excellent point.
Here's a question.
He's going to have to get a new stadium.
What are they going to do with Kemba Walker going forward in his career?
He's worth a lot. I'd re-sign him if you can.
I mean, if I'm Kemba Walker, do I want to stick around here? Do I want to stick around here if I'm Kemba Walker? I mean,
I would.
The best
years of his
career are going away. They're going to waste.
Well, you got to have somebody to want you. And I think
here's the reality.
There's a lot of teams that'll want him.
Here's the reality, and because this is what frustrates me about fandom. Right, 3 years ago, Kemba was here, and they said they better get Kemba some help. Yada yada yada.
Well, they got Dwight Howard.
They trade for Batum. Right, probably more of a
stealing money
accident to get Batum, and then he plays really well in a contract year, and everybody says Jordan better pay him. Don't let him leave. Jordan pays him, and then we realize probably wasn't the right guy to pay.
He's the Boris Diaw of this year.
I don't care what he is.
He's a Boris.
But
he's a Bobcat Boris Diaw.
But let me ask you this: are you going to sit here and tell me that you, as a basketball person or a knowledgeable sports fan, 2 years ago were saying that the Hornets should not pay?
I didn't want
Batum?
I wanted him here.
Well, and that's my point. A lot of people want. Let me finish.
The decision. It's not my
right. A lot of people wanted him here. A lot of people wanted Kemba Walker to stay here and get an extension. Kemba's playing well.
Those people are still here.
Batum is not working out the way people thought. I think Dwight Howard was a good addition, but the reality is,
he's in a contract
I said this
year
from a long time ago. They shouldn't. Marvin Williams is not good enough to start
money.
On a playoff team at the power forward position. They haven't figured out the two-guard position, and the bench is not good enough.
Jeremy Lamb needs to play more.
If isn't healthy, which he wasn't at the beginning of the year, if he's still not healthy, they shouldn't be on the floor. Because how do you get 9 shots as many as Michael Kidd-Gilchrist last night and go 2 for 9?
He's a bust.
I agree with you.
Kidd-Gilchrist is a bust.
He's not a bust.
He's an absolute total bust. He's a complete bust.
He's the best defensive player they have. He's one of the best defensive players in the league. He plays all out. He hasn't developed an offensive game the way they
developed much of anything.
Well, here's where
Jeremy Lamb needs to play. He's outplaying Batum. He's outplaying all these guys. They're a bunch of jabronis right now. I'd like to see a guy like Travion Graham get more time in there. I mean, guys who hustle and give you more heart. Cody Zeller gets knocked, but the guy hustles. He dives for balls. That guy's giving it all. The fans dig him.
Who's not giving it all on this team?
The reality is this. When it comes to a guy
Batum's
like
not giving it his all.
They're getting what they drafted. And understanding basketball when they drafted him, who was in the division when they drafted Kidd-Gilchrist? LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony was in the East. Smith was in Atlanta. Otto Porter, Brad Beal, and company in Washington. So when you start looking at they had to find a guy that could defend those type of players. Mm-hmm. They had to. That's why they drafted him. I'm not saying it worked out perfectly, but when you're building an organization and building a basketball team, you have to put the requisite pieces together to win a championship. It has not worked.
I agree.
That's the reality.
Now, if it's not working, if it is broke, you do fix it.
I agree. And the problem, and I agree with you on this one, they have Kemba Walker, they have Dwight Howard, and everybody else is a role player.
I don't question that.
A lot of expensive role players.
They're playing like role players.
Well, I don't question that, but I was at the game last night, and I'm watching Now, and I don't watch a lot
Were you
of
one of those
Hornets
guys that
games.
spilled something? I know you were on court side. Some guy spilled something on the court, Will. Were you there? I know you were on court side. You and Denny Hamlin.
That was not me. But I'm watching this, and I'm watching Malik Monk. I watch him bust. He pops a three, coming later, pops another three. Next thing you know, Silas just pulls him out of the game.
He doesn't defend. That's the book on him. He doesn't defend.
He may not, but they had nobody on the floor. Now you replaced it with somebody who wasn't defending and wasn't shooting.
All right.
I watched guys, 3 open guys, go from the corner to the wing to the corner, all wide open, all pass up on the shots to finally get the 4th guy finally took a shot.
All right. Now, before we got to go to Twitter here. But I want to know if Will talked to Malik Monk about squirrel hunting in Arkansas. I know you're friends with Monk's brother, but Twitter question of the day from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grille and a lot of fans here for our studio audience. Why is the Big Ten, Reggie Walker, their basketball tournament 1 week before the ACC tournament? And by the way, ACC basketball is not so bad. I think North Carolina and Duke are obviously still pretty good. And you have friends over at Queens College. They got a basketball and a wrestling team on the way.
Let's address the Big Ten and the actual question as to why they're playing their conference tournament when they are. It's because they're doing it at Madison Square Garden for the first time as a conference, and the Big East has that standard week, March 7th through the 10th. The Big East is already at Madison Square Garden.
Is there still a Big East?
They wanted to do it at Madison Square Garden. They had to accept playing it earlier to get the venue they wanted. The ACC will be played at the same time as the Big East, I believe, at the Barclays Center over in Brooklyn. So that's going to be the mecca, obviously, for basketball in that 10-day span is going to be Madison Square Garden and the Barclays Center.
Now, we got a little main event action coming in here, I believe, right off set. Reggie Walker. Looks like some of your favorite dishes.
You can come in the front.
You can come right here.
You can come in the front. It's all right.
Got wings. William Wilson does dig that pretzel action. Reg, there you go. What is your name, dear? Khadijah. Khadijah. I hope I said that right. I probably didn't.
She must have been named because her mama was watching Living Single. Khadijah James, a.k.a. Queen Latifah. Flavor Magazine.
All right. William Wilson, you're a man of the people. You know what buys and sells. To me, that just says that the Big Ten undersold themselves. You can let the second-tier Big East going to bump you out of maybe the contract prohibiting them, but I would have said, okay, we're the Big Ten. We'll go to Chicago. We'll go to Kansas City. We'll go somewhere else. We're not going to be second tier to some job guys at the Big East. What do you think, Will?
Well, I mean, the Big East for so long, Madison Square Garden, championship Big East, that's just what it is. That's a staple there.
Yeah. By the way, Patrick Ewing doing a good job at Georgetown, by the way.
I mean, but that just is what it is. That's an established kind of deal. That's just always going to be there. The big Madison Square Garden and Big East are synonymous with each other.
Yes. Dale Earnhardt and Chevrolet.
Yeah, that's just
reality.
You're not going to let Ohio State. The Big Ten, a football conference, come into basketball territory and say, well, this is what we're going to do. Let's just be real. At the end of the day, the Big Ten is a football conference. The Big East is a basketball conference.
Nobody's putting a gun to the Big Ten's head saying you got to come to Madison Square Garden.
No.
Well, Arkansas let a Big Ten coach come in there. How'd that work?
Go somewhere,
Come there, they got to make.
They're trying to
make some concessions.
They're trying to make inroads in the New York City market.
Right.
So that means you're going to take what opportunities you can get.
It's better to be the second tier team at Madison Square Garden than the first tier anywhere else that Ohio State would have, the Big Ten would have went.
All right. Well, a Big Ten coach came to Arkansas to run the football program. That didn't really work out too good.
That is true.
Reggie Walker, Queens College basketball. Give us an update there. And what about a wrestling team, which I'm really excited for?
Queens University is actually there right now. Men's basketball is #1 in the country in Division II basketball, undefeated right now, 16-0.
When do you get the coach on here, Reg?
And then Saturday, they host #5 in the country and conference rival Lincoln Memorial University out of Tennessee.
Heard of them.
4 o'clock game, should be a good one. 2 top 5 teams. And Todd Withers of Queens, one of their better players. It's a very deep team. They play 9-10 guys consistently, and all those guys play well. Todd Withers, probably considered their best player, is actually getting a lot of traction amongst NBA people that he could actually end up becoming a draft pick in the second round this year, depending on how he finishes the season. So I encourage people. It's an intimate setting to go watch a game, but it's a good place to watch a game. Not a huge gym, but it's a good time.
from Division II at that time, Longwood College, making it to the NBA. I could see Queens getting that guy in the league, Reg. I like, and now a wrestling program. They're out to they're saying a big meet with who is it? UNC Pembroke and who else is in that wrestling tournament?
Spartanburg Methodist. It's just a dual meet.
Okay, and by the way,
Thursday night,
UNC Pembroke, home of former Division II All-American and national champion Derek Brunson, who will be in the main event at the UFC Fight Night here coming to the Time Warner Cable. What was it, the Spectrum Center? Now, Mike, we got a lot of fantasy action here. What's going on?
Yeah, well, the theme this week I wanted to focus on was people out there who have their daily fantasy lineups. Don't give up on teams that have bad records.
Like the Hornets?
Like the Hornets, right off the top. If you're looking at point guards, you'll want somebody. Everybody wants the Kyrie Irvings or whatever, but there's value with bad teams. Beginning with Kemba Walker, who had a great game Wednesday night, 41 points in the losing effort. That came out to about 60 points in fantasy. That's a huge number. If you're looking for a little bit less, down in Orlando, Elfrid Payton is having a decent year on a bad team. And this weekend they played the Wizards. And last time he had 30 and 10 rebounds against them, or 10 assists, excuse me, and ended up with 63 fantasy points. So they play again this weekend. That should be a good opportunity for him. And the guy you mentioned earlier, Yogi Ferrell,
Kevin,
he's about $4,000 on your budget. 7 threes last night or Wednesday night. Just a huge number. He's been doing it for the last few games. So if you're looking to get cheap on the point guard front, that's one area you could look at.
$4,000. I'm gonna go to William Wilson and get a custom suit. If that's what I'm gonna do with $4,000.
That's a good place to put your money.
I know. That's what I'm saying. So, there's nothing wrong with being a good player on a bad team.
Absolutely not.
Bad things happen to good people sometimes.
One of my favorite players of all time is Fred Carter.
Fred Mad Dog Carter, the best player on the worst team in the history of the league.
Absolutely. 20 points a game on his 73 76ers. He's one of my favorite people. I worked with him for years, and that was his motto, best player on a bad team.
I've heard of bad players on bad teams. I was one of them. But, everything. What else we got?
Well, if you want to go a little bit further here, at the small forward spot, if you're looking for some other good players on bad teams, T.J. Warren of the Suns.
A very young team.
Very young team.
No pressure. They jack it up a lot.
He's getting about 20 a night, so there's no pressure on him, but he's doing it against everybody. He gets you about 30 fantasy points a night. Harrison Barnes, North Carolina's Harrison Barnes had a great game last night, and he's getting you about 30 fantasy points a night. He had a great game against the Hornets, 25 and 11.
A lot of people have good nights against the Hornets. Could you make an argument that if you want fantasy guys, find guys who are playing on the other team that's playing the Hornets that night?
You know what? These days it could be very well. You're definitely going to get points because the Hornets aren't playing defense. And a rookie on the Bulls, Lauri Markkanen.
I've heard of him. Had
a great game against the Knicks the other night in double overtime, 33 and 10. He had 8 threes, which tied the NBA record for threes by a player 7 foot or more in a game, along with Dirk back in the day.
I hear this Marotic guy, is that how you pronounce him, the Bulls? He's on the trading block. That one other team, a Western Conference team, is in deep discussions to acquire him, which could open up more minutes for Markkanen or whatever.
Yes, absolutely. That's a good player too that you mentioned in trade base. The Bulls are they're a bad record, but they're playing a lot better. But those are some guys who are good players on bad teams that you shouldn't overlook when you're looking to do a daily fantasy lineup.
Now you said.
All right, we got the UFC in Charlotte coming up January 27th. Jacare Souza taking on Derek Brunson. It's their rematch. Jacare knocked him out in the first round when they fought in Strikeforce. Kevin Tolbert and I will be there. I really like this bout. I like Derek Brunson. Big advantage on the ground, a former Division II National Wrestling Champion from Pembroke. So I'm really looking forward to the UFC coming back to Charlotte. I saw them here the last time when Roy Nelson fought Stefan Struve at the Bojangles Coliseum. Mike, got any final thoughts?
You mentioned the ACC earlier. Duke and North Carolina off to slow starts in the conference.
I'll take them over the field.
Well, then they got some work to catch up on, but I agree. They'll
be there at the end.
Duke especially has a lot of their next week or 10 days is going to have an easier schedule, so they could definitely catch up some ground there.
My final thoughts are, we're getting ready for March Madness pretty soon, so the conference plays.
How's Arkansas looking?
We're actually looking pretty good. We're playing pretty good this year. We have a good season so far. But more importantly, this food with Dilworth Neighborhood Grille is on point.
As long as
So
Brett
you
Bielema
guys
was
keep
not
on.
cooking or coaching Arkansas, we're good, right?
Look, the reality is I'm down here eating like Will, but my final thought, I'm going to make an announcement. I don't know if a lot of people realize this has happened yet.
You're not
but
coming
as
out,
of
are you?
Tuesday, with the end of the college football season, college football officially started free agency. And what I mean by that is here come the transfers, the grad transfers. I'm going here, I'm going there. College football free agency has officially started. Whether you like it or not, that's the culture that has been created. Everybody said for years we need to give the kids more opportunity to make decisions that benefit them more. Well, it's here. It's called college football free agency. I'm leaving it right there.
I think Jalen
They
Hurts,
wait
somebody's
till
going to come
out
for
of the
Jalen Hurts.
Some
Maybe
of them.
Jim Harbaugh camping out there.
Jim Harbaugh. USC's here. William Wilson. I'm still getting over this. Michael Jordan's the Black Jerry Jones. I'm still trying to digest that, but we've got a lot of good food to digest it with. I want to thank Kevin Tolbert, John Tobias, who's off with East Carolina and Wichita State, Reggie Walker, William Wilson. Glad he's here. The best dressed man in all the podcasting. Mountaineer Mike Freer, World B. Freer,
Number 2
Kevin
Mountaineers.
for now. I love Bob Huggins. Great guy, by the way. Thanks to all the folks at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grille. VCU in Dayton. A big watch party right here. My VCU Rams tomorrow night here at the Dilworth Neighborhood
Well,
Grille.
that'll
I'm
be fun.
Kevin
That'll be
Casey.
good.
So long for now.